Okay, so let's dive into this case. The initial news that came out about Colin Strickland, it was just, well, devastating.
Absolutely devastating. His former girlfriend, Mariah Wilson, or Mo, as she was known, the
Ah,
gravel cyclist,
right, Mo Wilson, a big name.
had been murdered. And not just murdered, but brutally. The violence of it was shocking.
Yeah, the suddenness.
Yeah,
It just grabs you straight away. And the first details came from that 911 call, didn't they?
they did. From Mariah's friend, Caitlin Cash. She's the one who found her. And the call itself paints this truly awful picture.
How so?
Mariah was on the bathroom floor, blood everywhere. You just can't imagine walking into that. The pure shock.
No, he can't. And the immediate thought, especially with her bike missing.
Exactly. This incredibly expensive racing bike, like over $100,000.
Yeah, $114,000. He was gone from Caitlin Cash's place in Austin, where Mariah was staying for a race.
So naturally, the first theory is robbery gone wrong, it seems. Well, straightforward in a terribly tragic way.
But that didn't last long, did it? When investigators actually got to the scene, 1708 Maple Avenue, things started to look different.
Very different. They found some key details that pointed away from a simple robbery. One of the big ones was the presence of cerebrospinal fluid, CSF.
CSF, okay, that's the fluid around the brain, the spinal cord. Protective fluid?
That's the one. Finding that at the scene meant the bullets must have penetrated her skull.
Which means instant death. Grim, but very telling.
Precisely. Awful. Obviously, no chance of saving her, but it confirmed homicide, definitively. So the focus immediately became, okay, who did this?
And Caitlin Cash, finding the body, she's the first person they talked to properly.
Naturally, she's the crucial first witness. And she mentioned something important. Mariah had been with Colin Strickland earlier that day, swimming.
Ah, okay, so that puts Colin on the radar right away. Understandably.
And the bike is still missing at this point, so,
Oh.
the robbery idea is still kind of floating around.
But then the bike turns up.
Exactly. It's found dumped nearby, and that really changes things.
How so?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't pawned or sold?
Right. If you steal a $100,000 bike for profit, you don't just dump it. This suggests the theft wasn't the real motive. Maybe it was taken to look like a robbery.
A red herring.
That's what investigators would call it, yeah. Something to mislead them. Which suggests, a killer who's thinking, trying to cover their tracks.
So a smarter, more calculated killer than maybe first assumed. And that makes the physical evidence, like shell casings, even more critical.
Absolutely critical, because those casings can link directly back to the specific gun used.
And they needed to rule people out, too. Caitlin Cash, for instance.
Standard procedure. They did a gunshot residue test, a GSR test, on her.
Yeah.
It came back negative. So that effectively cleared her as the shooter.
Okay, so Cash is in the clear, but she's still a key witness. Did she give him anything else?
She did. She told investigators that, as far as she knew, Colin Strickland was the last person Mariah had contact with. They'd even had drinks at a cafe that day.
So Colin becomes even more central. Not necessarily a suspect yet, but definitely someone they need to talk to.
Exactly. He could have vital info about her last hours. And the police, they weren't just relying on what people said. They started checking for cameras.
The neighborhood canvas, security cameras, doorbell cams.
Yep, and bingo. They hit something big. Footage shows a black Jeep driving towards Caitlin Cash's house on the night Mo was killed.
A black Jeep. Any identification. License plate. Driver.
Not from that footage, no. Too grainy, maybe too far away.
Hmm.
But that's not all. There was audio, too.
Audio.
From a Ring doorbell camera nearby, it recorded a scream right after that Jeep arrived.
Oh, wow. Chillin'.
And then the Jeep just speeds off, escapes the scene, but still, no ID on the driver.
So you've got a vehicle, the timing, the scream.
Mm.
It's a huge lead, even without knowing who was driving.
A massive lead. But the connection to Colin Strickland, that gets much, much stronger just a few days later.
Oh, did they find the Jeep?
They did. Parked right outside Colin Strickland's place, the same black Jeep.
Whoa. Okay. So he goes from person of interest, key witness, street to number one suspect.
Pretty much instantly. So they bring him in for questioning.
And what does he say?
Well, he confirms he knew Mariah, mentions she was known as Mo in the cycling world, which is true. And yeah, he admits seeing her the day before she died.
Did they tell him how she died? Shot.
Interestingly, no. The detectives deliberately held that back during this first interview.
Ah, playing it close to the chest, watching his reaction.
Exactly. Standard technique. See if he reveals anything he shouldn't know, observe his body language, see if he seems overly nervous or misleading.
Makes sense. So while they're doing that, they're also digging into his life, presumably.
Yeah. Background checks, relationships. And that's when another name pops up. Caitlin Armstrong.
His girlfriend.
His current girlfriend, yes. But their relationship had history. They had actually broken up the previous October 2021. Got back together in November.
Okay. But where does Mo fit into that?
Right here. During that breakup period, that month or so they were separated, Colin had an affair with Mo Wilson. A month-long thing. And crucially, even after Colin got back with Caitlin Armstrong, he stayed in contact with Mo.
Okay, now that changes the dynamic completely. Suddenly, Caitlin Armstrong looks like a potential suspect too. Motive. Jealousy.
It's immediately on the table. The timing, Colin seeing Mo, the recent reconciliation, it all points towards potential friction. And then the clincher.
Let me guess.
The Jeep.
The black Jeep, registered to Caitlin Armstrong.
Wow, okay. So that really puts her right in the middle of it.
Absolutely. She's now a prime suspect. So the focus shifts. They bring Colin back in again, needing a much clearer timeline of that day.
Second interview. What's his story this time?
He gives more detail. Says he was with Mo, left her place around 5:30 p.m. They went for food, mentioned pool burger specifically.
Burger, okay. Time.
He was a bit vague, said maybe 7:45 p.m. or later. Then he dropped Mo back at Caitlin Cash's place around 8:30 p.m.
And Caitlin Armstrong, where was she, according to Colin? He said he texted Caitlin, confirmed the black Jeep was hers, said he got home himself around 8:30, same time he dropped Mo off. Caitlin arrived later.
How much later?
Around 9:21 p.m., he said. Her story. She claimed she'd been downtown. Laser hair removal appointment at 7 p.m., then yoga.
Okay, laser hair removal, yoga. Can he provide details, like which yoga studio?
That's the thing. He couldn't. No specifics about her yoga class, which, raises eyebrows.
Yeah, that sounds convenient. Or forgetful.
Yeah.
Or something else. Did he talk about the affair?
He did. Admitted to it during the breakup. And he also revealed something else. He'd changed Mo's name in his phone contact.
Changed her name. Why?
He said Caitlin had gone through his phone before. He claimed he changed it to avoid fights, basically because Caitlin was jealous.
So he's acknowledging Caitlin's jealousy. That's significant.
Very. So you've got Colin's timeline, which seems to roughly check out with texts and times, putting him home when Mo was likely killed. But Caitlin, her movements are unaccounted for during that crucial window. Her alibi is shaky.
Right, so what's the next move for the police? They need to talk to Caitlin directly.
Exactly. And they find a way. It turns out there's a minor warrant out for her.
A warrant.
Mm-hmm.
Related to this.
No. Something completely separate. Theft of service. Pretty minor, apparently.
But they can use it.
They can use it as a pretext, a reason to bring her in for questioning officially about the warrant. But really, they want to ask about Mo.
Okay, so Caitlin comes in. How does that interrogation go?
It's tense. The detective tries to be really nonchalant, build rapport. But Caitlin, she seems visibly on edge.
Understandable, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Does she ask about the warrant?
Right away. She zeroes in on the warrant and asks for a lawyer.
Smart.
Very. The detective tries to kind of brush past the warrant details, steer the conversation towards Colin, towards Mo, her connection to them.
But here's the twist with that warrant, right? There was an issue with it.
A major issue. It had the wrong birth date on it. Incorrect information. Meaning, technically, legally, she wasn't under arrest based on that warrant. She was actually free to leave at any point during that questioning.
No way. Did she know that? Did the detective tell her?
It's not clear if she knew, but the detective certainly didn't correct the situation. Despite her being free to go, he kept trying to get her to talk.
About what specifically?
About issues between her and Mo.
Correct.
He mentioned that Colin had told them Caitlin was upset about him still seeing Mo, trying to get a reaction and explanation.
And did she bite?
Nope. She stuck to her guns, said she didn't know Colin was seeing Mo recently, and just kept saying, I want to leave.
So the detective presses harder, knowing she could just walk.
Yeah, he plays a big card, tells her her vehicle, the Jeep, was seen near Mo's house around the time of the murder, mentions the jealousy Colin reported, really pushing for some kind of explanation.
And still?
Still nothing. She just repeats, I want to leave. And eventually she does. She walks out.
Wow, okay. So Caitlin leaves. What now? Back to Colin.
Immediately. They bring Colin in for a second interview, but this time is different.
How so?
He's got his lawyer with him, which, as you can imagine, makes things much harder for the investigators. The dynamic shifts completely.
Right. Lawyer present, answers are going to be more careful, more guarded. What did he say this time?
He described his relationship with Caitlin as, well, troubled, especially after Mo had visited Austin previously. But he also tried to downplay the jealousy thing a bit.
Ow.
He mentioned Caitlin had been on dating apps when they were broken up before and claimed he was fine with it. Said he was surprised anyone would think she was still fixated on Mo.
Trying to paint a picture of it being less intense than maybe it was. What about her temper? Did they ask if she could get angry, violent?
They did. He kind of gave a general answer, like everyone gets mad,
Well,
But
yeah.
then he was firm. He said he did not believe Caitlin was capable of murder.
Okay. Did he say if he'd spoken to her since she left the police station?
He revealed he'd actually told Caitlin to stop contacting him while the police were doing their fact-finding, as he put it. Said he hadn't spoken to her or seen her since the Friday before the murder.
Wait, the Friday before, that's specific.
Yeah, he mentioned getting a new SIM card then. He also said the police had already been to his house looking for Caitlin and that his father had contacted her and given her the number for their lawyer, a mutual attorney.
A mutual attorney. Interesting. So he's distancing himself, but also confirming they share legal counsel. Did he waver at all on whether she could hurt Mo?
No, he denied Caitlin ever said anything about wanting to hurt Mo, just kept repeating he didn't think she could do something like that.
Okay. But then came the question about guns.
Yes, that was crucial.
Yeah.
He confirmed he had bought guns for Caitlin back in early December.
For Caitlin, why?
For self-defense, he claimed. And he thought there would probably be a receipt for them somewhere.
A receipt.
Yeah.
And guns. This feels like it's leading somewhere important.
Absolutely. Because the ballistics analysis came back, the bullets used to kill Mo Wilson.
Let me guess. Same caliber as one of the guns Colin bought for Caitlin.
Exactly the same caliber. A direct forensic link between Caitlin and the likely murder weapon.
That is huge. Undeniable physical evidence.
A critical piece. And it wasn't just ballistics. They kept digging into the digital footprint, cell phone data, cross-referenced with all that surveillance footage.
Building that timeline second by second almost?
Pretty much. They mapped out everyone's movements that night. Colin and Mo at Pool Burger around 7 p.m., then heading towards Maple Avenue, where Caitlin Cash lived.
And Caitlin Armstrong, where was she?
The data suggests she was following them, or at least in the same area, in her black Jeep. And significantly, at some point, her cell phone goes off the grid. Turned off.
Turned off. That looks really bad, like she didn't want to be tracked.
It certainly implies that. But even with her phone off, they had the visual. Surveillance footage caught her Jeep near Mo's place after Colin said he dropped Mo off.
And the audio.
Yeah.
The scream.
Yes, the neighbor's doorbell camera captured that scream just moments before investigators believe Mo was killed. Timing lines up with the Jeep being there.
So Colin's alibi holds up with phone data, placing him elsewhere.
His data put him away from the scene when Mo died, cleared him. All eyes were now squarely on Caitlin Armstrong. She's the prime suspect.
Case closed. Arrest her.
Well, here's the final twist. Just hours before the police likely would have moved to arrest her, with all this evidence piling up, Caitlin Armstrong vanished.
Vanished. As in, fled.
Fled the country, using her sister's passport, fraudulently obtained.
Wow. That's incredibly bold. And screams guilt. Where did she go?
Her email records showed a one-way ticket booked to Costa Rica.
Costa Rica. And they could confirm she got on the plane.
Yep. Airport CCTV footage showed her boarding the flight. She was gone.
So an international fugitive hunt begins. What do they find out?
Initial intel suggested she'd booked into a hostel in Santa Teresa Beach, a popular tourist spot, and she was apparently working there.
Doing what?
As a yoga instructor, trying to blend in, maybe build a new life.
So how do they track her down? Did they send marshals?
They used a clever tactic first. An officer set up a fake social media profile, pretending to be someone looking for a yoga teacher in that specific area.
And Caitlin responded.
She did. It helped confirm she was likely still in the area, but finding her physically was tricky. Why?
Nice.
Because while she was on the run, she'd actually had plastic surgery, changed her appearance.
Seriously. Plastic surgery to avoid capture.
That's what the reports indicate. Trying to alter her look significantly.
But it didn't work.
Ultimately, no. The arresting officer, when they finally located her, said they recognized her despite the changes. By her eyes.
Incredible. Recognized her by her eyes. So she's caught.
Caught, arrested, and extradited back to the U.S., initially facing charges probably related to the escape, the passport fraud.
And did she try anything else? Or just wait for trial?
Oh, she wasn't done trying to escape. Even back in custody in October 2023, waiting for the murder trial, she made another attempt.
Another escape attempt. How?
During a doctor's appointment outside the jail, she made a run for it.
Unbelievable. Was she caught quickly?
Yes, very quickly that time. But it just showed her desperation, I think.
So despite the running, the surgery, the escape attempts, The trial finally happens.
It does, and the evidence against her is just
You
overwhelming.
got the G footage near the scene,
Yeah.
the timing, the scream audio,
Mhm.
Colin's testimony about the jealousy, changing the phone contact, her shaky alibi, the gun purchase.
And crucially, the ballistics match. Tying that gun directly to the bullets that killed Mo Wilson, plus the flight, the altered appearance, it all points one way.
So the verdict.
Guilty. November 16th, 2023. Caitlin Armstrong found guilty of first-degree murder.
And the sentence.
90 years. 90 year. For the murder of Mariah Mo Wilson.
Wow. 90 years. So looking back at this whole deep dive, it really started with that awful shock, the confusion.
Robbery.
Yeah, and then watching it unravel, the love triangle coming to light piece by piece, and seeing how critical technology was, the cameras, the cell data, and the forensics. The ballistics, absolutely key. Until finally, justice, after a very long and winding chase.
There were definitely those aha moments, weren't there? Like realizing the bike wasn't the motive, it was a distraction.
Yeah, or that grainy Jeep footage suddenly becoming the linchpin.
The gun Colin bought,
Yeah.
linking it forensically, and then her just fleeing, the passport, Costa Rica, the surgery. It's quite a story.
It really is. Utterly tragic for Mo Wilson, obviously. But also just the calculation involved in the crime and the cover-up attempts.
It leaves you thinking, doesn't it, about how these intense personal relationships, jealousy, can just spiral into such darkness.
And how, in today's world, with cameras everywhere, digital trails, how those seemingly tiny details, things maybe missed decades ago.
Right. How they become the threads that investigators pull on to unravel the whole thing. It really makes you wonder, what does a case like this tell us about, I don't know, the intersection of our private lives and public justice now? How everything leaves a trace?
Yeah. Something profound to consider. How the smallest clue can ultimately bring the truth to light, even the most complex and tragic circumstances.